Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have quorum here in, Kristen? Order the April 10th, 2024 meeting of the Indiana State Board of Education. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bess.
Present.
Ms. DeLosa.
Present.
Mr. Durham.
Present.
Dr. Ernest.
Here.
Mr. Gastineau. I saw his mouth move.
He's present.
Okay. Ms. Hamill.
Here.
Mr. Mapes.
Here.
Ms. Moat.
Here.
Ms. Rentschler.
I have her on hold real
Can
quick
hear
because
her.
I'm adding Greg. She's here.
Mr. Watts.
Here.
And Dr. Jenner.
Here.
Thank you.
So Greg and Kristen, can you confirm you were here?
Here.
Kristen? Okay, we have quorum. We're gonna, this is, for those of you watching from home, we have been working on some technology challenges, and as we mentioned, our teachers work through these things every single day, so as a State Board of Ed, we're gonna work through them too. We have a quorum here in the room, and we also have 3 members online. Some can hear, all can hear, but some are struggling with the voice communication, which I will use another piece of technology, the old cell phone, if they have any comments to add. But at this time, let's go ahead and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the March 27th, 2 weeks ago, 2024 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we did meet just 2 weeks ago. I know a lot can happen within 2 weeks, and certainly we have had quite a bit going on. The bulk of the update I wanted to give you today is feedback is coming in, getting a lot of good feedback, and it's very solution oriented, and it's been positive. So I really appreciate all of the people who have taken the time to look through the presentation, or many people, I've received emails who are actually watching the whole board meeting to actually hear it and hear the discussion. Thank you for taking the time to do that. I know that board meeting was, about 2.5 hours long, but we really, really need your thoughts, and we'll be taking that and bringing feedback themes back to the board in June, when we'll have our second rule draft, and we'll kick off our second feedback loop. Any board member comments? And I know there is one, because he told me, and he's off screen right now, BJ Watts, who is not showing, is wearing a purple Scottsburg sweatshirt that he's really proud of. He wanted me to share that. Scottsburg won the state basketball championship So you can't see him, but you can imagine BJ Watts in a big purple sweatshirt.
I had
He's
every
pretty-
intention of wearing my purple shirt today. Honestly, though, congratulations to all the state champions. As it has been, that's a pretty special moment. It was really special for me to get to see Scottsburg win their first state championship. But Paul Neidig and his crew did an absolutely amazing job, and that's why Indiana high school basketball is the best in the country.
Yes, sir, that's right. Any other shout outs? I'm looking at you.
Obviously, Fishers High School was also successful in the boys 4A state championship. But not only the IHSA, but we need to thank Pacer Sports and Entertainment to give these high school kids a unique venue to play a state championship. I don't know that people realize that Indiana is probably the only state high school association that has professional venues where the kids get to participate for state championships. So shout out to both of those organizations.
Absolutely.
And while we're on that, we need to give a shout out to this last March Madness has given us a chance, those of us who matriculated at Purdue, to reflect on our university and how great it is. And I want to just say great job to them being in the championship game. And it is more than just the sports, but I wouldn't be where I am with that. We were just talking about this, right? The experience that I had there, and a lot of us have had there. So I almost get a little teary-eyed, but it was an incredible run. Got to go to many of those games, and it was great. So
Yep.
So
yep,
thanks,
absolutely.
thanks Purdue. Congratulations.
I thought you were going to start a boiler up chant, and I was watching who was going to join that because it's our basketball we take very seriously, as you said. But yeah, boiler up, and by the way, the Sycamores, Indiana State University Sycamores. I mean, a heck of a run for Indiana in a number of different ways. Athletics, which we're talking about, but also academics. And what ties it all together is our Rethinking High School work. Really, we're trying to contemplate the skills and the knowledge that's being developed, not only within the four walls of the classroom, but outside of that. So it's an interesting tie-in for sure. Any other board member comment? All right, I'd now like to have start public comment, and we have one today, and that's Kendra Johnson.
Good morning to each and every one of you. First of all, for all those people thinking about purple, they say great minds think alike. Normally I wear purple in February, my birth month, but I changed it to April. I said I'd do something a little different. And it's also the color that stands for royalty. 7 years ago, after I received my award from the Indiana Civil Rights Commission for the work I've done as an advocate for families, for my community in Gary, educating with the Indiana Region 5 parent organization, I received a phone call from a parent from Thea Bowman that I used to work with in the Gary Community School Corporation. And she told me, Kendra, we need you to come to a public meeting. Now, being well known for supporting public schools, the Gary Community School Corporation, I kind of struggled for a minute. But then I reminded myself, all parents who want their children to have the best education that they could get for their child. It didn't matter whether it was public charter, private, homeschool, whatever. If a parent needed my assistance, then I was going to go and be there. And I also did not expect to get in the newspaper. I thought I could just go in, say a few words, and walk out. I was wrong, because I heard something at that meeting that made me so mad that when it came time to speak, I told parents this: make sure that you align yourself with individuals that will help your child get the best education they could get. Because if people do not want to invest in your child to help them get the best education, then you need to find people that will invest in your child. Because it takes a village to raise a child. And we've seen too many times what happens to children that fall through the cracks of education. Well, like I said, I guess that's how I ended up in the paper that day. But here I am 7 years later, and I still feel the same way. Parents need to partner with people, whether it's the educator, administrator, institution, your legislator, whoever. They need to partner with them to help their children get the best education, because a mind is definitely a terrible thing to waste. And years from now, it doesn't matter how much money you had or your possessions. What matters is what you invest in the life of a child. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
With a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we will now shift to new business. So for this item on the agenda, just to give you some context, Calumet College of St. Joseph has requested a hearing in front of the state board pursuant to IC 2024-4-1.5. That statute notes that before an authorizer may issue a charter to an organizer that has had its charter removed, that its charter, let me say that again, because it's right in front of me. I just was not reading it. I'll be honest with you, I was ad-libbing. Let me say that paragraph again. The statute notes that before an authorizer may issue a charter to an organizer that has had its charter terminated or has been informed that its charter will not be renewed by the organizer's current authorizer, that the authorizer must request to have the proposal reviewed by the state board at a hearing. Today's hearing is meant to provide information on the background of Thea Bowman Leadership Academy, a charter school. Their previous authorizer and their current authorizer are present. The hearing should inform the board of the new organizer's proposal and how it is different in the areas of deficiency identified by the current authorizer. When you present, and I'll invite you up here shortly, the verbal presentation should inform the board of how the proposal will be successful going forward. And after the board conducts the hearing, the board shall either approve or deny the charter proposal. Both authorizers will be given 10 minutes to present, and then Calumet will be given an additional 5 minutes to close because they are the authorizer requesting the charter. And then the board will make a decision. So, again, we'll start with Calumet College of St. Joseph. You will have 10 minutes. And by the way, I'm gonna set my timer. So at the 9-minute mark, I'm gonna warn you, right? And you can wrap up. I wanna make sure you know that that's coming. And then following that, Education One LLC will then have 10 minutes, same thing. I'll set my timer and keep you posted there. And then again, Calumet College of St. Joseph will then have 5 minutes to provide any closing remarks. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Calumet College of St. Joseph up. And I'm going to get my timer set. And again, at the 1 minute mark, I'll do a one and may say something and just wrap up your comments, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll start it right now.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Carrie Hutton, and I serve as the Executive Director at CCS Charter Authority, LLC at Calumet College of St. Joseph. And so we do want to thank you for taking time today to hear our presentation. Just a brief timeline. TBLA, Thea Bowman, approached our office in February of 23, hoping to obtain a local authorizer who could provide resources and boots-on-the-ground support. And they were also interested in seeking information about the process to change authorizers. In October, TBLA informed their current authorizer, Education One, they were going to pursue a change in authorizer. In November, they submitted an application to our office, but also in November, our office communicated with Education One, which they documented with a follow-up email on November 14. It's important to note that revocation was not discussed during our meeting with Education One or in the summary of our conversation. In fact, the timeline for their renewal application with Education One was discussed. And I quote, "The school will undergo charter renewal in the 24-25 school year as their contract expires on June 30, 2025 with us." End quote. We were under the impression that they were preparing for a renewal process, not revocation. But then less than a month later, we received notice that Education One revoked the charter. Moving on with the timeline, our board approved the TBLA application in January, and it may be important to note that the notice about revocation was the last time our office communicated with Education One. We're a very small authorizer with a desire to partner with local schools. We believe authorization is both supervision and support in our shared community. We're local educators who understand the local education and funding landscape. Our portfolio is small, which allows us to focus on individual support for schools. We have a campus full of experts that can readily respond to emerging issues in a matter of minutes. Our campus is approximately 9 miles from Thea Bowman Leadership Academy, and drive time, that's less than 20 minutes. We have a vested interest in student success at TBLA. Their graduates are our neighbors, they're our coworkers, they're students at our college. Their success directly impacts our shared community. We believe the situation is unique and doesn't fit squarely within the statute that brought us here today. We don't have a rejected renewal application that identified deficiencies, and revocation occurred after we processed their application. We've done our best to identify deficiencies noted by Education One for this hearing by reviewing their most recent annual report and by reviewing the summary of our conversation with their charter office. Although we'd like to spend time today talking about all the wonderful things happening at TBLA, all the wonderful things TBLA has been commended for by their current authorizer, we're going to focus on the identified deficiencies, how we will address them in an effort to adhere as best as possible to the statute requirements. The first noted deficiency is strategic planning and oversight, which we agree does not meet standards currently. We'll address it by identifying and mandating ongoing board training and requiring a comprehensive multi-year strategic plan during the first year of our charter contract with Thea Bowman. The next two deficiencies that were identified by Education One were a focus on high achievement and a commitment to exemplary governance. We do not agree that these indicators are deficiencies. Education One wants the board to drive academic goal setting. We want school leadership, the individuals with the education background and expertise who are trained in education and work in the building daily to drive academic goal setting. Furthermore, our expectation for exemplary governance does not include counting the number of questions each board member asks during a meeting or the length of time that a board meeting lasts. We're unsure about why the fiduciary responsibilities, legal and regulatory compliance, and compliance indicators were rated as does not meet standard, primarily based on the narrative provided in Education One's most recent report, which includes many commendations. In terms of academic performance, there were a number of indicators that were rated as does not meet standard. And what we did is we took a look at all of these indicators. We constructed a peer group that includes all of the charter schools in Gary and Hammond and East Chicago, our shared region, as well as the traditional public school systems. So we agree that a couple of the indicators do not currently meet standard. For example, Education One noted that post-secondary support, subgroup achievement on benchmark assessments and reading, hiring and retaining quality staff, and staff turnover rates do not currently meet standard. Our plan to address these deficiencies include providing additional dual credit courses, CLEP exam opportunities, increasing the number of high school students who participate in internships through some of our community connections, exploring Project Lead the Way programs for all grade levels, and supporting the counseling department as they work to prepare students for post-secondary endeavors. We'll support curriculum development, provide PD opportunities for teachers, and invite TBLA students to participate in our summer camps, one of which will be funded by a significant Science of Reading grant our college was just awarded. We'll leverage our Transition to Teaching program and Masters of Arts in Teaching programs to help teachers earn appropriate credentials. We'll be intentional about sending our education students to Thea Bowman for required classroom observations and student teaching experiences in an effort to create a continuous cycle of licensed teachers. Our dream would be to have TBLA graduates come to us to study education and then to send them back to that school as licensed teachers who understand the educational landscape in our community. We'll also help the TBLA board and administration develop incentive programs and find ways to support conditions that mitigate teacher attrition. Salary bonuses, PD opportunities, adequate resources and supplies, recognition programs, and a climate of professionalism, mutual respect, and administrative support. Education One also identified achievement on benchmark assessments for reading and math and subgroup achievement on summative assessments for reading and math as does not meet standard. We disagree. In fact, we're thrilled at the growth of legacy students in both reading and math on the benchmark assessments, which is NWA from last year to this year. In fact, Education One cited the growth in their most recent annual report. We anticipate that growth will continue. Furthermore, subgroup scores on the summative assessments were consistent with whole school scores, which again, we don't think are deficient. We plan to consider community context and regional educational alternatives when we look at summative assessment data for TBLA, not just compare them to the entire state of Indiana. Another deficiency cited by Education One is achievement on summative assessment, SAT scores in math, and evidence-based reading and writing. We agreed, we don't think this is a deficiency. Since the publication of the 22-23 annual report by Education One, which used data from 2022, 23 data has been released. There was an increase in the percentage of students who were proficient in both math and evidence-based reading and writing from 22 to 23, and the 23 scores reflect a relatively consistent, sometimes better performance than alternative education choices in our region. We're encouraged that TBLA scholars are performing relatively well and that they're improving. Another deficiency cited by Education One is comparison to local schools in achievement and growth. We disagree and don't think this is a deficiency. Data suggests that TBLA students are growing and that performance in math and ELA, as measured by iLearn, is consistent with or better than many of the alternative options in our region. Furthermore, the percentage of students who are proficient in math and ELA as measured by iLearn has grown each year since 2021. Another deficiency cited by Education One is graduation rate. Again, we disagree. We do not think this is a deficiency. Since the publication of the 22-23 annual report by Education One, which again used data from 2022, 23 data has been released. There was an increase in the percentage of students who graduated from 22 to 23, and the 23 graduation rate reflects a relatively consistent, in many cases better rate than an alternative educational choice in our region. 90% of TBLA scholars graduated last year on time, and that graduation improved from the year before. In fact, it's the second highest graduation rate in the peer group that we chose for this presentation. The final academic performance deficiency, as far as we were able to tell, cited by Education One, was chronic absenteeism. Again, we disagree and do not consider this a deficiency. The chronic absenteeism rate is consistent with, and in many cases much lower than alternative educational options in our region. In fact, it's the lowest rate in Gary, the peer group that we chose for this presentation. Big picture, academic success is our priority, and it's where we will invest the bulk of our time and resources. Academic success will have direct oversight by 3 faculty members under the authority of our charter school office, who will work with TBLA to increase the academic performance rates, academic growth rates, provide classroom management and teaching coaching, help with curriculum development and implementation, and help increase post-secondary readiness. They will help ensure teachers are properly credentialed and have working conditions that reduce the turnover rate. They'll communicate our expectations and monitor progress toward mutually agreed upon goals. They'll be on site at TBLA at least twice a month, more if needed. This is a model we have used in the past, and it has been successful for our office. Allowing us to authorize TBLA would give them a local partner who could leverage campus expertise, community connections, knowledge of the local educational and funding landscape to help move them forward. It would reaffirm the principle of parental choice in education and maintain the diversity of educational options available to families in our region. They are currently at capacity with a student wait list. There's clearly a demand for what they have to offer. Allowing us to authorize them would eliminate potential disruptions to students' academic progress and social development that could be caused by changing schools. We believe in the work they're doing. We see the passion in their board, administration, teachers, and staff. We see the potential in their scholars. We believe our office is well positioned and equipped to support their continued growth and upward trajectory. Again, if this proposal is approved, we would begin work immediately. We would work over the summer with the TBLA team, and then of course on the groundwork would begin this fall. So thank you for taking time to hear and consider our proposal. We sincerely hope you choose to allow us to authorize them. They've demonstrated that their scholars can compete with scholars from other local schools. Our job would be to get them to the point where they can compete with scholars from around the state and internationally. Ultimately, we want the students who are served by the schools in our portfolio to be well equipped to succeed and earn 21st century workforce opportunities and skills. Thank you.
Thank you. With 5 seconds remaining. That was pretty concise. Thank you. So again, now I will ask Education One LLC to come up. And once you get up here, I'll start your 10 minutes. And then again, at the 1 minute mark, I'll give you that 1 minute warning. All right, starting now.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your time and your service on the state board. I am Lindsay Omler, Executive Director of Charter Schools for Education One at Trine University. We are a high-quality authorizer with a reputation for excellence both statewide and nationally. Most recently, we've been recognized by the National Charter Schools Institute for our differentiated approach to school accountability, specifically in regards to our performance framework, which has become a national model for measuring school performance in an equitable way. We currently oversee 15 schools across the state. We're in the process of opening 2 new schools for this coming school year, and we serve more than 4,500 students, including the students at Thea Bowman Leadership Academy, which is a school we've authorized since 2016. In 2016, when we initially began working with this school, their previous authorizer, Ball State University, had determined that they would not be renewing the school's charter contract at the end of their term. Following that decision, the school applied to us, at which point we came before the state board, for this very same reason, to get approval to move forward. And it's funny how things come full circle. Understanding at the time that this school had a number of noted deficiencies and was in a state of disarray, our board willingly took on Thea Bowman simply because we believed in the students and families in Gary and hoped that our approach to transparent accountability might lead to a better outcome for the community. That hope still remains true to this day. Let me be abundantly clear with you all. We are not in the business of closing schools. As an authorizer, it is simply our job to determine whether or not an organizer has met the necessary standards in order for us to continue granting a charter, or in the case of Thea Bowman, revoke the charter when they have not met their obligations. In complying with our statutory duty, we've done our due diligence in regards to the monitoring and oversight of this school since 2016, and I can confidently state that this school's board lacks the capacity to govern a high-quality school that meets our standards for excellence. For this reason, Education One has moved to revoke the school's charter, as we are obligated to do by law. What happens beyond that is not for me to decide, and I am not here today to sway your decision either way. However, I do think it is really important for you to understand our process and the deficiencies that we've noted throughout the school's charter term in order for you to make a decision about next steps and ensure schools like Thea Bowman cannot avoid consequences when there is evidence of continued underperformance. As a part of our process for authorization and in accordance with our guiding principles, Education One takes a differentiated approach to monitoring and oversight. It is our belief that providing schools with individualized support coupled with high levels of accountability creates an environment where kids and communities thrive. We utilize a tiered system to provide our schools with differentiated supports to best meet the unique needs of our schools who require more intensive interventions such as the Bowman Leadership Academy. Our intervention and support policy is composed of 3 tiers, similar to what you see in a classroom. Tier 1 schools have minimal to no noted deficiencies. Tier 2 schools have some deficiencies with a credible plan to address them. And Tier 3 schools have most areas are deficient and or have no credible plan to address their deficiencies. Schools who qualify for Tier 3 interventions are immediately placed on probationary status, which is made abundantly clear in our intervention and support policy. Tier 3 schools also receive a school improvement plan and ultimately could be in jeopardy of charter revocation and or non-renewal of the charter. And in addition, we have a revocation and non-renewal policy that's in accordance with all state laws and allows schools due process. To date, Thea Bowman has not elected to appeal this decision. We also conduct routine site visits for all of our schools where we measure a school's academic performance and attend all of our schools' board meetings in which we measure the organizational capacity of the board. During each of our meetings with the school's leadership team, as well as during a school's public board meetings, we provide report outs to all of our stakeholders regarding any of the noted deficiencies that a school might have. Because of the ongoing underperformance and failure to rectify their noted deficiencies over time, the Bowman Leadership Academy was moved to Tier 3 status for the 23-24 school year and placed on a school improvement plan in June of 2024, long before we were made aware by their legal counsel that they would be seeking alternative authorization. There has been a historical underperformance of this school in regards to academics. They've received a rating of does not meet standard for the entirety of their charter term, 7 years, in academic performance. Moreover, while there was growth gains observed last year specifically that you heard Calumet allude to, the school currently has a 40% turnover rate. 40% of their teachers this year are new, and 60% of those teachers have a pending, emergency, or substitute license. In addition, it was our hope that the school would use this year to make the necessary improvements related to academic and organizational performance. But unfortunately, rather than working to rectify their deficiencies, which have only increased over time, they're attempting to transfer to Calumet in order to avoid accountability, which has left us with no choice but to move forward with revocation of their charter, as it's been clear throughout our time working with this school that they're not meeting our performance standards. In addition, Calumet has made many missteps in this process that have further complicated our ability to hold this school accountable, including non-compliance with multiple Indiana laws. In regards to the timely posting of information on their website, as well as having additional conversations with us to better understand the depth of the deficiencies that exist with this school. Moreover, there's no evidence in any of their annual reports submitted to the department or on their website that they've adopted national standards for quality charter school authorizing, which is also required by law. Communication with Calumet, you heard mentioned earlier, has been limited at best. Any and all communications with this school related to deficiencies have been initiated by me and have been at a very high level. The information that they presented on today is from our website, not from conversations with us around deficiencies that exist. Prior to today, we have not had an opportunity to share detailed information with Calumet regarding Thea Bowman's deficiencies, and so for them to be able to speak to you all about it today, to really speak to the statute about how they will be substantively different in the proposal is very difficult for them to do. Education One cannot, in good conscience, continue to authorize this school. However, as I stated earlier, we're not here today to weigh in on your decision regarding next steps. We've upheld our statutory obligation to ensure that the schools we grant charters to are providing high-quality options for students and families, which is the job you all have entrusted us to do as an authorizer in the state of Indiana. During last month's meeting, Dr. Ernst, I don't know if you remember this, but you made a comment and it resonated with me. You said, I don't need the adult problems, I need the kid solutions. And I firmly believe that irrespective of today's outcome and whatever decision is made concerning Thea Bowman Leadership Academy, you all will act with kids at the forefront just as we have continued to do. That is why reform is imperative in terms of the broader landscape. First and foremost, I would hope that the state board would consider taking an active role in establishing a process for holding Calumet accountable, considering the lack of evidence throughout this process to comply with their statutory obligations as an authorizer. And finally, while I have no doubt that the Thea Bowman Board has a heart for kids, caring deeply about children does not always coincide with the expertise needed to govern a school. I would love to see the state board proactively engage with local leadership in Gary to consider a more effective model for school board governance that would eliminate the long-term capacity issues that continue to plague this school. It is our goal to ensure that students and families are well served. That has always been our top priority as an authorizer, and I know that that's your number one priority as a board. Ultimately, we respect whatever decision you all make today and appreciate the opportunity to address you. Thank you.
Thank you. Also concise, 2 minutes left. Okay. We'll now have Calumet College of St. Joseph, who will have 5 minutes to provide closing remarks. And if you can give me just a second, I need to get...
Of course.
All right, we'll go ahead and start that now.
Okay. All right. I simply want to again emphasize that we are a small local authorizer with a vested interest in TBLA graduates. Again, they're our neighbors, they're our coworkers, and they're students at our college. Our shared community rests on their success. I want to point out that Thea Bowman did not appeal the decision for the revoked charter because they had made a decision to seek a new authorizer prior to being placed on Tier 3 level or prior to the charter being revoked. We again started these conversations back in February of 2023 They didn't actually submit an application to us until November. And again, the charter was not revoked until after we had received the application, processed the application, and conducted our site visit. So we were right before our public hearing and then right before our board meeting to approve the charter. So that left everybody sort of in a position where we just had to continue the process, and we were happy to approve their charter contingent upon the outcome of today. So Education One talked a lot about board governance. Although that is very important for us, our focus will be on working with the education professionals in the building. We want them driving the decision making. We want to partner with the education professionals who will be working with the students and the families on a regular basis. I simply want to thank you guys for hearing our proposal today. I don't have anything else to add, so thank you.
All right, thank you. So board members, a couple of things. One, this is a prime example of the additional accountability that Indiana charter schools have. So not only do they have state accountability, but they also have an authorizer, a level of accountability as well. I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to share, I spoke with the mayor of Gary because I do believe at the local level, that's where real change happens. It's all about local leadership. So I spoke with Mayor Eddie Melton this morning, and then he has also provided a letter to the board, of which I will read right now. Dear Indiana State Board of Education, I'm writing to express my strongest support for the Thea Bowman Leadership Academy in Gary, Indiana. As mayor of Gary, I'm acutely aware of the critical role TBLA plays in providing our city's children with a high quality and enriching educational experience. He goes on to lay out 4 areas, a pillar of educational excellence. TBLA has established itself as a pillar of educational excellence within Gary. The academy boasts a rigorous curriculum that fosters critical thinking, problem solving, and leadership skills. Students consistently demonstrate strong academic performance, making them well prepared for college and future careers. The next area is diversity and inclusivity. TBLA embraces a diverse and inclusive environment, welcoming students from all backgrounds. This fosters a sense of cultural awareness and understanding, which is vital in today's globalized world. The small class sizes allow for personalized attention, ensuring each student receives the support they need to thrive. Third area, a critical choice for parents. The existence of TBLA provides parents with critical educational choices within Gary. The Academy's unique approach complements the existing educational landscape, offering a valuable alternative for families seeking a well-rounded learning environment for their children. Fourth area, investing in the future. A thriving TBLA translates into a thriving Gary. Well-educated graduates are more likely to contribute positively to our city's workforce and civic life. Investing in TBLA is an investment in the future of Gary and its residents. In conclusion, I urge you to recognize the vital role Thea Bowman Leadership Academy plays in the city of Gary. TBLA is more than just a school. It is a cornerstone of our educational system and a beacon of hope for our children. Preserving TBLA as an option for parents and students is essential to the future of our city. Sincerely, Eddie Melton, Mayor, City of Gary. So on that note, we have a proposal in front of us. The proposal is for Calumet of St. Joseph to be able to authorize Thea Bowman. So I would now ask for a motion to approve the proposal, and then I'll open it up for discussion.
Okay.
Yep.
Motion first.
Let's motion, and then we'll open it up. So I'm asking for a motion to approve Calumet of St. Joseph's proposal as the new authorizer of Thea Bowman.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Pat Mapes. I think I heard a second from BJ Watts. Let's now open it up for any discussion or questions.
You won't be shocked. I have some comments.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bess.
So first of all, thanks to the authorizers, both of them, for coming in today. And it's clear both authorizers take very seriously the success of the students in Gary. I mean, I think that's, there's a long, long history there, and the fact that they're both invested in the success of students means a lot. I think, and obviously I also want to thank Mayor Melton. I have a great deal of respect for him, and for him to kind of personally weigh in on this is very meaningful in a sense of you have the mayor of the city who essentially, by writing this letter, is stepping up and saying, hey, look, we all have accountability for the success of this school and the success of these students. And again, that means a lot from the leadership of a city. A couple of concerns. I think, again, I appreciate Calumet being so clear about the supports that they want to provide to the school. However, there's a line between being an authorizer and running a school, and I would encourage Calumet to think about where does that line exist and be very, very clear with the leadership of TBLA. What's the responsibility of the school leadership and what's the responsibility of the authorizer? Because remember, in the end, the authorizer exists to hold the schools accountable. And if an authorizer starts to bleed over into, hey, we're going to help you do this, we're going to help you do that, like as an example, again, I don't want to, it's great that they're willing to provide the supports, but for example, making sure that all of TBLA's teachers are licensed, that's the responsibility of the school, not of the authorizer. The authorizer exists to say, hey, your teachers aren't all licensed, that's a deficiency, you need to correct that, not say, well, let's do this together and we'll make sure that that problem doesn't exist. So I think because there's a passion on the behalf of Calumet, which again is admirable, to make sure the school is successful, as an authorizer, again, you just have to make sure that that line is clearly understood by all parties so that TBLA doesn't start to rely on Calumet to solve the problems for them. Calumet exists to make sure that the leadership is accountable for solving those problems. Now again, the support of the college itself, which you may be separate from the authorizing arm, that's fine and good. And again, I hope that all the students of TBLA are successful, graduate, and go on. But again, since ultimately we then are accountable for the accountability of authorizers, making sure that that line is very, very clearly understood. I also would encourage, it's clear from the presentations that there was not a ton of in-person communication between the two authorizers. Indiana, unlike some other states, does not have hundreds of authorizers. We're Midwest nice here, and so I would strongly encourage, this is not just for these two authorizers, but for all. When these situations pop up, the authorizers have to get together to talk. Like that is critical. Even if there's differing opinions, they have to get together to talk, and if they can work that out themselves, it never gets here. And I think that that's critical. So again, we've got some major authorizers, the mayor's office and the state charter board and Ball State, and as well as Trine, and then other, like in Calumet, like when these things happen, and they probably will, this probably isn't the last time this will happen, get together and talk about it and see. It's perfectly fine for different authorizers to have different standards and accountability frameworks. That's the nature of the beast. But sit down and talk and go, well, this is why we did this, but we don't see it that way. And again, that's just a different piece. So the final thing, again, thanks to Education One. I know this has been a challenge. I think the accountability framework, again, and full disclosure, I'm on the board, I got to get to, of the National Association of Charter School Authorizers. So that's the national board of all the authorizers across the country. First of all, Indiana is widely recognized as having one of the best charter school laws in the nation. And then in terms of the authorizers, we have some authorizers here in the state that are also held up as one of the best in terms of their accountability. Education One is one of those. So again, I want to thank them for being at that level. And I hope that all of our authorizers would be as well. So that's my comments. Again, it's just more of a caution, and really would appreciate, I think it'd be nice for Calumet to think about what that looks like and possibly come back to us at some point in time with a, hey, here's our plan for what this looks like. But in the bottom line, I wish the greatest success as Calumet authorizes them and TBLA goes forward, great success for all the students there, because again, we need the region to produce exceptional graduates. And I think it has in the past and it can again. And hopefully this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Any other questions or comments?
Can I ask?
Yes.
So
Dr.
one of the
Ernest.
things that came up in the comments, and I appreciate those, the testimony, was and so I'm asking, I guess, I don't know who I'm asking on our staff. I heard there was some non-compliance with some laws. I need to be reassured, are we okay?
We would
Have-
not have
have
brought
there
this
been law?
recommendation
Okay.
forward otherwise.
Okay,
We have a team that looks at a number of different schools. As you know, we look at all school types, traditional public, charter, and non-pub. And so the recommendation that you have from the department is to authorize Thea Bowman today.
okay, thank you. And then I think the other thing that came out in this that I think's interesting, and you touched on it just a little bit, is the idea of, and I'm glad it was mentioned, that we don't just want these students to succeed within their own peer group in terms of the data that's created. I think that's something that as we look at accountability and we look at what we've done with the dashboard and the great work there, we need to make sure that we're looking, when we have a peer group that, let's face it, that data's not great. So to be at the top of that group, that's not right for our kids. And so I think we need to take this as a wake-up call, if you will, or I think we have been awake, so I'm not, but I think we need to really look at what's it look like to be able to compete in all of those areas. And I think this is one that we really need to take notice of to that. And then I think we just need to continue to watch and be diligent of how are our schools doing and where do they need support in those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ernest. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
I just have a comment. I appreciate both authorizers summing up what their experiences have been thus far, and even the work that Education One has invested in Thea Bowman, as well as the work that Calumet is trying to invest in Thea Bowman. And I think Mayor Eddie Melton's comment resonated with a lot of us. It should have, because Thea Bowman does mean a lot to the community. So we haven't heard from many parents today, but I have personally, and Thea Bowman does mean a lot to the community, and its continued existence is something that a lot of people do want to see. At the same time, I'm very hopeful, like Mr. Best spoke of, you know, the authorizer is not gonna always be able to hire the staff or anything like that. That's not their job. But I would like to definitely see higher than 60%, if that number is accurate, of licensed teachers in the school building, and to hear Calumet saying that that's part of the plan. We want to increase the number of educators that are fully licensed, and they have a transition to teach program that will support that. So I just wanted to make that comment. I think that is going to be imperative when it comes to increasing those scores and seeing things improve.
Thank you, Ms. Delosa. Any other questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, let's do a roll call vote on this, please. And again, the motion that has been provided and seconded is to approve Calumet of St. Joseph's proposal as the new authorizer of Thea Bowman.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Bess?
Yes.
Ms. Delosa?
Yes.
Mr. Durham?
Yes.
Dr. Ernest?
Yes.
Mr. Gastineau?
Yes.
Ms. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Mapes?
Yes.
Ms. Moat?
Yes.
Ms. Rentschler,
Yes.
Mr. Watts,
Yes.
and Dr. Jenner.
Yes. The motion carries, and the authorizer will now be the Calumet College of St. Joseph moving forward. And again, I can't emphasize enough, and you all stated it, quality education for all children in Indiana is why we are all here. And so I appreciate the time that both authorizers provided today in, again, providing that extra level of accountability to these schools. And we expect performance. We expect opportunities for kids. So we look forward to following this and hearing the success going forward. And I would say, by the way, that's not only for the 2 schools we heard about today, but it's for the other 2,200 schools we have in the state of Indiana. That is why we are here, to make sure quality education is happening for kids. So, on that note, we're now going to initiate rulemaking from one topic to another. So I mentioned to the board back in, January, February, that we have 3 active months coming. As soon as the General Assembly sine died 2 weeks ago, we immediately started rulemaking with high school. Today, we're going to start rulemaking with reading, and that's specifically aligned to Senate Bill 1 and making sure our rule is legally aligned. And then in May, we will open rulemaking for summer school to provide some flexibility there. And of course, that summer school rulemaking in May would be for the following calendar year. We already have the flexibility for this summer. So what I'd like to do is have, I believe, Lynn Schemmel, our Chief Academic Officer, who may be joined by Dr. Rebecca Estes, to come up and provide literacy updates and just a high-level look at what will be in the rule. Similar to what happened 2 weeks ago, board, what will happen is you will direct the department to submit the rule to OMB and start the process. And that resolution is in the agenda today. So, Dr. Estes.
Good morning, Dr. Jenner and board members. As you and anyone tuned in are hopefully aware, we've been laser focused on the issue of literacy and ensuring we're all doing what's best for Indiana kids. With the goal of increasing the number of 3rd grade students who achieve proficiency in reading at 3rd grade to 95% by 2027, we know that there is a need to maintain that laser focus.
Hey, Dr. Estes,
Yes.
Can you pull that mic just a little bit closer?
That way?
That's it. Thank you.
Beautiful. So you've likely seen the data that indicates a drop in reading proficiency well before pandemic-related learning loss had any impact. While we're seeing some increases in this data, it's minimal to where we need to be. We've spent a lot of time analyzing the data. I'm not going to read it to you, but we'll rest on the next slide for a moment because it displays the QR code to access it for yourself if you haven't already had the opportunity to explore the literacy dashboard. So again, I won't spend a ton of time here, but essentially the dream is to see far more green than you do right now on that Indiana map. So in order to provide supports for teachers and students, thankfully the need for funding has been recognized and met through a historic nearly $170 million investment to support the efforts to ensure that all of our students master foundational reading skills that will help set them up for success throughout their entire life. So I want to take a literal minute to breeze through some of the solutions that have already been deployed through the support of the investments that have been made. The Literacy Center team, supported by UND CEL and Marian University's Center for Vibrant Schools, has been engaged in implementing on-the-ground support through the Indiana Literacy Cadre model. We are actively recruiting for the 24-25 school year and look forward to the outcomes and being able to share those with you attached to these efforts. Additionally, many schools previously opted into administering iRead 3 at 2nd grade, which allowed IDOE to create an on-track indicator, which is extremely important as we focus on ways to support students to achieve proficiency well ahead of that 3rd grade year. Thousands of educators, literal thousands of educators, have opted to enroll in the modules created in collaboration with Marian University to develop their understanding of science and reading by completing 25 hours of training, and many have already received $1,200 stipends, and many more will be coming. IDOE awarded over $15 million in grants to schools to support science and reading implementation through instructional coaching, curriculum alignment, and professional development. This funding impacted 72 school corporations serving over 65,000 Indiana students. $10 million was awarded through early literacy achievement grants for schools to distribute to educators who have directly impacted early literacy attainment. And Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is supporting further efforts to put books in the hands of kids before they ever step foot into a PK-12 school setting. While there's been much movement to support the 95% goal, there is still so much work to be done, and Lynn Schimmel is going to come up, our Chief Academic Officer, to share more on that.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. Changes to Indiana Code through Senate Enrolled Act 1 include supporting schools as they analyze their universal screener data to ensure they are maximizing the results and applying them to interventions for students. We're in our third year of offering iRead 3 to grade 2 students. This year we had close to 80% of schools participating to determine where students are at with their proficiency of reading foundation skills. Those students who are at risk need immediate interventions. IDOE is committed to supporting families and educators with detailed scoring reports. Additional performance data was available this year at the reporting category level. We have a dedicated section within the Learning Labs Literacy Hub, and we're currently building an assessment hub. iLearn checkpoints to be piloted next year with over 70% of schools participating include reading foundation items across all checkpoints at grade 3. We recently provided guidance regarding summer school, along with multiple resources of support, encouraging schools to take advantage of data this summer and in preparation for the requirements of designing reading programs beginning the summer of 2025. We codified good cause exemption criteria. Students have 3 attempts, 1 in grade 2 and 2 opportunities in grade 3 during the spring and summer administrations before retention as a last resort. Students who do not pass iRead 3 by the end of grade 3 will have additional opportunities through grade 6. Previously, it was through grade 5, and not all students retested. Beyond the pre-K to grade 3 initiatives that have been added over the last 2 years, additional support through literacy modules, opportunity for a literacy endorsement, targeted professional learning, and instructional supports with expansion of science of reading efforts, and practices for educators in grades 4 through 8, and Lexile monitoring required through recent legislation in Senate Bill 6, and iLearn 3-year checkpoints have been or are currently being developed to support these efforts. While there are other aspects to Senate Enrolled Act 1 that we didn't go into detail today, such as the early literacy endorsement requirement, those are already in the rulemaking process since the requirement was initiated in the 2023 legislative session. However, the need to initiate rulemaking for the primary reading rule, 511 IAC 6.2-3.1, still exists to align with the legislative changes just outlined. This overview marks the beginning of rulemaking. There will likely be 2 potential public hearings, and then the final rule will be presented to the State Board of Education for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. And to clarify the last point on 2 potential public hearings, so the second one is triggered by if we have changes within the rule. And so with Rethinking High School, we knew that a second one would be definitely happen. With this one, so much is prescribed through legislation, we may not need a second window. We're gonna, certainly if we do, easy, absolutely willing to do that, but just so the board's aware, so much of this is statute. Okay, I will now ask for, and then again, we'll open up for discussion or questions after. I'll now ask for a motion to pass the resolution which has the State Board of Education directing the Department of Education to commence rulemaking process for updating the reading plan requirements. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
With a motion and a second, let's open it up for any questions, comments, discussion. Scott just opened his mouth.
No, I just-
Go ahead, Scott.
I'm
taking that as a nonverbal cue.
No, this is just really quick. I really appreciate the refresh of all the things that have been done to date. I think that should be out front for everybody to see what the department and the legislature and everybody has come together to say, look, we've got a problem. Let's do things, and the amount of money and the amount of resources and the support for educators at the local level is amazing. So thanks to the department. I know there's been a ton of work put into that. Thanks to the partners at SEL and Marion for stepping up and doing that work as well. But I think it's worth noting and reemphasizing the amount of work that's been done to date, so that as we do this rulemaking, like, there has to be an acknowledgement of support has been there all along in the last year and a half or so, and will continue to be there as this rule goes into effect. So thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Bess. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, let's do a voice vote on this one. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So let's get that rulemaking process going. Round 2. Okay, so the last thing we have today is really informational for the state board and also for the general public, and it's about the new kindergarten readiness, early learning assessments. As Dr. Cervese approaches the mic, I'll just share with the board, you're going to hear a broader lens of early learning assessments being discussed. To connect it straight to the board's work, if you recall, when we launched the Indiana GPS, which was back almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and noted those characteristics and determined what indicators do we presently have or do we need to build in order to understand the full continuum of learning for students, from early learning to K-12 to post-K-12. And one of the indicators that was approved by the board was a kindergarten readiness indicator for all of our elementary schools, to understand where are students coming in, because then we can leverage that data to further advocate for support for early learning and triage some of that. So since we launched Indiana GPS dashboard publicly, that kindergarten readiness block has been grayed out as coming soon. So you're going to hear, as a state board of ed, the progress that is made, and that will very soon go green, and we will begin to have that data for the state of Indiana. So on that note, Dr. Cervese, give us a broader look at some of the work you're doing. And again, this does not require a vote, board. This is more informational for you and the public.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. The first thing I would like to do is we're going to talk about a system today that will help us understand and support kindergarten readiness. So there were a couple things we had to put into place first. First of all, we had to define what is kindergarten readiness. And we said kindergarten readiness is achieved when children are prepared in all domains of early learning, and families, schools, and communities collaborate to positively impact educational outcomes. And as I'm talking today, you're going to hear me talk a lot about the domains of early learning. There are 8 of those when we're talking about early learning, and they are English language arts, mathematics, science, social studies, approaches to play and learning, physical health and well-being, and creative arts. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Once we had our definition of kindergarten readiness, we wanted to refresh the early learning standards. And we did this last year at the same time that K-12 STEM and K-5 were doing their work as well. So we had the 2 rounds of review by experts. We had the time for public comment, and we also worked very hard to ensure vertical articulation. Our early learning standards are birth all the way through the end of preschool, and so we worked very hard again to make sure that aligned with what was expected of children at the end of kindergarten. 2023 was the first time they were formally adopted by the state board, so thank you for doing that. And we will go along with the same review timeline of every 6 years like the academic standards. So now that we have our definition of kindergarten readiness and we have our refreshed standards, now we're looking to build and deploy our assessment system. So my Office of Kindergarten Readiness utilized a request for proposal process to procure a vendor to design, administer, and report a kindergarten readiness assessment that I'm very proud to say will be ready by July of '24. The process included a review of written and oral proposals by representative from IDOE's Office of Kindergarten Readiness, Assessment, and Special Education, as well as the Family Social Services Administration Office of Early Childhood and Out-of-School Learning and First Steps. So this truly has been a collaborative process by all of those very invested in early learning in the state. But why do we need to measure skills in early learning? First, it gives us an ability to measure and compare individual child outcomes over time. It will provide early indicators of children who are at risk of not meeting proficiency in literacy and math at later grades, and it will provide data for educators and families to target student supports. Our system has two main components. The first is iSprout, which stands for the Indiana Student Performance of Readiness and Observation of Understanding tool. Part of the iSprout is already in place. It does measure all domains of early learning, which allows us a rich, in-depth picture of a child's developmental level, their strengths, as well as their areas of need. iSprout is currently administered to children 3 through 5 who receive special education in a public school system. We are going to expand the iSprout offering in this opt-in period, and we are going to make it available to all children ages 3 through 5 in early learning systems. So those could be children who are educated in the public school system, Head Start, those community-based providers, the centers, the registered ministries, even the home providers. We are going to make it available to them. The opt-in period is going to start in May, with deployment expected in July of '24. And then we will turn our attention to the children ages 2 and under, with an opt-in period beginning in '24. And you might be thinking, whoa, an assessment for infants, for toddlers, what are we talking about here? But it's very important to note that the iSprout is strongly based in educator observation, so what the educator knows of what is appropriate for developmentally appropriate practice for children in their different stages. The second part of the assessment is the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. Indiana's KRA measures school readiness aligned to Indiana's early learning standards that are ages birth through 5. It is intended to be used by educators to improve outcomes for all kindergarten children enrolled in school. The purpose of the KRA is to provide information to partners at the local, regional, and state levels about how well prepared children are for kindergarten. Many incoming kindergarten students have participated in pre-kindergarten programs such as Head Start, On My Way Pre-K, or private tuition-based programs. However, a significant number of children do not have any formal pre-kindergarten experience. Kindergarten then becomes the first opportunity to collect baseline developmental data on all Indiana children. Any public, community, or chartered non-public school may elect to administer the KRA to all kindergarten students enrolled in their school. The materials, training, and supports will be available at no cost. And I should also mention that the iSprout is available at no cost to providers as well. So for our next steps, we'll have the opt-in period for the iSprout and the KRA. We'll work on deployment, which is training, rostering, and administration. And then as Dr. Jenner mentioned, we'll have the indicator on the GPS dashboard. So first up is our communication to schools and providers, and what is this going to look like? We are going to utilize the Learning Lab to provide webinars for kindergarten educators as well as school corporation administrators and the test managers. We're going to offer office hours as well as additional Q&As to support that implementation. And once we do have those results, we have to know what to do with it. So we're going to provide professional development once the test is complete so that educators and schools can best use that child-level data to offer enrichment or additional supports in the classroom. And it's also important to note that the communication that we're preparing is also in collaboration with the Office of Early Childhood and Out-of-School Learning. So again, our partnership with them is continuing. Again, just a reminder that this is a fully opt-in process right now. We're going to open up the opt-in window for schools that would like to administer the KRA, as well as schools and community partners that want to administer the iSprout for 3 through 5, beginning on May 3rd. That opt-in window will be open until July the 15th. And then for providers, who work with children 2 and under, their opt-in period will open in October. And as Dr. Jenner mentioned, the results from the kindergarten readiness assessment are projected to be visualized on GPS in January of '25. The kindergarten readiness assessment is given within the first 6 weeks of kindergarten, and the results will tell us if a child is ready for kindergarten or if they are ready with support. So that's what will be visualized on the GPS. And we're hoping in the future we'll be able to drill down by those early learning domains, prior program attendance, and things like that. So lots of possibilities for us. Any questions?
Can you go back to the rollout overview slide, please? So, board, I mean, this is exciting for, I think, a number of reasons. We talked about reading today. We know as a board, we've talked about, we can't wait until the end of 3rd grade to understand if a child is struggling or not. We have to do it much earlier. So this is yet another opportunity for not only educators, but also parents to understand what that early intervention might look like. The other thing is when we talked about the birth through 2 and the educator observations, I would also add, typically for educators, what triggers that is a parent observation. A parent or family member noticing, hey, this doesn't seem right. Can you help? Can you see what you think? Again, to provide the earliest possible support for a child, especially in those prom time period where the windows of opportunity are open. So question for you on this slide, Kelly. You said May 3rd, because I've already had a couple superintendents who heard this was coming and have reached out, so I'm preparing for my phone to ring, and others too. You said May 3rd is when, if you're interested in opting in, that the window will open. Is that the date? I know this is a soft launch with the State Board of Ed today. Is that the date that the department is going to provide more information to schools, or will that go out in Friday's newsletter? What's the timeline to which our school leaders and educators will get more information on this opt-in opportunity?
Sure. So we will use SAMs to communicate those learning lab sessions that we're going to have. The learning lab sessions are going to be offered the last week of April. We'll have 2 again focusing on the kindergarten readiness assessment, 2 focusing on the iSprout for schools, and then 2 focusing on iSprout for the community-based providers. During those sessions in the learning lab, we'll talk about the opt-in process, the responsibilities schools will have for that, kind of why you should administer this assessment to your students. And then we'll have the opt-in. We're hoping that job form opens up on May the 3rd. And that's when schools can actually go in and input their information, how many kindergarten students they have. But all during this time, we're working on updating the website. So that will be refreshed. There'll be a Q&A that's continuously updated on there. But that's kind of our timeline for communicating and for implementation.
And just to be clear, for those, SAMs is something we named it years ago. I don't know who or how it was named. That's the weekly newsletter that is sent out from the department every single Friday that I think over 25,000 people get, and some are educators, some are community leaders. It's a variety of people. So that is where we'll have some communication in there this Friday, signaling some future dates, webinars that people can join to get more information.
That's correct, and we're already working with the Learning Lab to have those scheduled. And the Learning Lab, it's free to have an account for anyone that's interested, so even families can hop on and hear if they like to. And we're also going to work with the Office of Early Childhood and Out-of-School Learning to utilize their Monday Must-Knows, which is their weekly communication that goes out to their educators and families as well. So they will be well informed about those sessions and the next steps as we work through the process as well.
Great. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Yes, Ms. DeLosa.
So I love this. I love that we are going to assess children in kindergarten and just kind of see where they are. I do have a concern, and that is in these learning communities, will we be providing support to teachers as well as parents regarding these 8 domains if they see their child has deficiencies or a student in their class has deficiencies, in one or more of these domains, because I'm concerned that the developmental delayed disability category in school can grow exponentially if these things are not addressed at home as well as within the general education environment. But we do know some students will need additional support even beyond that, but I don't want a bunch of children to be thrust into that disability category because there are some deficiencies indicated. So I'm just wondering if we'll have support that we're looking to provide to parents and educators.
Absolutely. So once the reporting window closes, which will be in October, then we will have different sessions in the Learning Lab with educators on how to read that child level data outcome. And it's very nice because once they input the data into the system, they automatically get individual student reports back, which shows, again, the child's strengths as well as areas of need that they might have. And it also provides some ideas for next steps of instruction. And those individual student reports also have a family component as well. So it will include things that families can work on at home.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that parent and family element, that's why with the Learning Lab, if you all recall, the Learning Lab was developed locally. I think you were maybe even on that team that helped develop that. That was during when the pandemic first happened, when it was gifted to us, essentially, gifted to us from philanthropy to the department. We had about 5,000 users. I heard the number yesterday. It's over 66,000 users just in a couple years. And we added a parent-family arm. It started out just educator focused, and we purposefully added that parent-family arm for exactly the purpose that you just described. So would love to continue growing that. Thank you for that question. Any other questions? Okay, so Kelly, thank you very much for, or Dr. Cervese, thank you very much for sharing. And we look forward to hearing more in the future. So thank you. All right, board, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.